Simone's speed is certainly not diminished. His second victory of the season, plus the knowledge that the drop weeks will change the game later down the line, shows that none of the other drivers can take him for granted. But today, it may be more about the qualifying than race pace. Overtaking here in Canada often proves difficult, so we'll see how it shakes out as we get ready to watch round 4 of the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Peter Mackay. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Canadian Tire Motorsports Park was just shy of seeing the Lotus 79 race here in real life, but today we get to see a pretty close approximation of what it would have been like. Let's head to our track guide to learn more about the circuit. Welcome to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, or as most fans know it, Motorsport. This circuit to the northeast of Toronto is a rarity in the world of racing today. Safety standards and the desire for more overtaking opportunities has caused most tracks to alter their layouts over the years. But Motorsport is still exactly the same footprint as it was when it was built in 1961. A mere 11 turns, most of which are high-speed sweepers, are dispersed among 2.5 miles, or just shy of 4 kilometers. The only alterations to the turns have been to the runoff areas, but otherwise the radii, camber, and elevation changes are all untouched. Because cars have continued to get faster through the passage of time, it's made this place a fearsome beast to tackle. Clayton Corner is particularly notorious. The blind crest and steep plunge combined with incredibly high speeds to create a punishing combination. Without many heavy braking zones, passing is often difficult. And other than using the slipstream up the Mario Andretti straight, the only other option is usually Moss Corner. This double apex hairpin is named after Sir Stirling Moss for his suggestion to redesign it after he saw its initial layout. While the plateau-like middle portion and critical exit onto the backstrip certainly give it plenty of character, the heavy compression at the bottom of the hill that causes a frighteningly short braking zone makes this one not for the faint of heart. Formula One, USAC, and IMSA have all taken their turns here, but recently NASCAR has joined the fray by holding a round for the Truck Series. Old school fans can rejoice for the enduring popularity of this bastion of untouched tarmac, but any motorsports enthusiast can't help but smile at the thrill Motorsport continues to provide. Well, Peter, for a track that is often touted as one of the few in North America that hasn't really seen much of a change in its layout since it was built, this feels very appropriate for the Lotus 79.
Indeed it does. And if you were to build a circuit for a ground effect Formula One car, Motorsport, or Canadian Tire Motorsport Park as it's now known, would be a very, very close replica of it, because you've got some really super high speed corners. The opening section in particular, turn 1, 2, 3, and 4, you are hanging on by your fingernails, and this car has so much capability in those areas that we're going to see the drivers put to the very test. However, when you get round to turn 5, Moss Corner, it's a two-part right-hander. It gets all of a sudden very technical, and that's going to be a hot spot for action. Watch out for contact there. But then you get onto the Mario Andretti straightaway, and that's where, if you've dialed your car in high downforce for the opening couple of corners, then you're going to suffer on the Mario Andretti straightaway, and of course vice versa applies. So as we see here in the Lotus 79, as it being an open setup series, well, we could see a little bit of give and take throughout the race.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of give and take, the championship has swung back to Simone a little bit, but obviously he's not leading, only up to third because he missed a round. As I mentioned, drop weeks will change that dynamic a little bit later. But in the meantime, with his single victory, Andy T has been consistent and leads Freesia by 28 points. Hankel and Tolanen round out our top 5. Both of them have been challenging those top spots as well. So I think this season it's much more anybody's game, despite Tomas still being incredibly quick. What about the team's championship, Peter?
So at the moment, it's the Parmalat Racing Team Brabant in the form of Andreas Henkel and Gernot Fritzsche leading the way by a pretty decent margin for this stage in the championship from Martini Lotus and Scuderia Ferrari, who are joint in second place. Then it's Ligier Guitagnes, Marlborough Team McLaren, and finally Albilad Saudia Racing Team Williams, or Williams, as some people refer to them.
All right, getting our first lap times in, but first we want to take a glance at the race details for this event. The laps go by so quickly that round 5 actually has 38 of them that the drivers are going to have to complete. It is an open setup series, like Peter mentioned, but the drivers are actually pretty welcoming to newcomers and actually share their setups with one another. In fact, Tomasz Simon shares his, so this is a lot down to driver, not just to the setup. They have an incident limit where at 17 they're going to be going through a drive-through penalty, and 25 will disqualify them. But unlike the version that we see right now in current times, which has a lot of paved runoff, this track was scanned without it. This is a bit of an older version, so drivers not likely going to be able to get away with too many incidents before they find the car, unfortunately, too wrecked to continue. Andy T, who holds the provisional pole only by 19 thousandths of a second, comes across for his second lap, and he goes to a 106.3. That's about 0.3 faster, so that's going to separate him from Shimon, who goes to a 16.4 and chops it back down to within 3/4 of a second.
Let's get Martin Granberg over the line now. Can he improve on a 107.213? He can. 106.978. Brilliant lap there from Martin.
Severi Seppa, who is in 4th, and then his second lap goes quicker. He's up on the inside of the second row now in 3rd. What about Robbo? Down in 14th on his first lap, unusually low for him. A 107.3 is about 0.2 quicker, still down in 13th. I'm kind of shocked to see Rob not doing better. Tolinen, my goodness, what a horrible end to this lap, as he was just weaving across the White's corner exit, so he's not going to be able to get any higher up that time.
Riding on the helmet cam, if you like, of Paul Williams. A very nice Nicky Lauda tribute helmet there for Paul. Nice small inputs on the steering wheel, opening up the power. Nice smooth finish to the lap there. Does he improve? He does. A 107.520 there for Williams, joining his teammate Barry West on the 8th row of the grid.
Well, hold on to the apple cart, because I think it might get upset in a moment, because here comes Freesia as he crosses the line. Oh no, he missed his first lap. He must have had an off track somewhere. So now he's under pressure. Is he going to have to start from the back of the field? He's got time to come around for a second one, as we now glance at Robin Pawlowski, who's actually taken both of his laps. So it looks like he's done. His fellow Lotus 49 regular Mick Claridge, 14th today. What about Michael de Turk? He's going to come around for his first time lap, a 106.9. Pretty decent. That'll put him up into the top 5.
So let's ride on board with Gernot Fritsch, really being put under the cosh. We've seen this happen to him a couple of times in recent races here in the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix series, where Gernot Fritsch has really had to pull out a quick lap at the very end, but perhaps likes to bed himself in, I'm not sure. But coming into this really fast section here at turn 8, the S's, you really are leaning in there really quick. There is a slight opportunity for overtaking there if you're really brave, but comes around the final corner of White's and over the line. 107.358, that's not going to do it. In fact, it's about a second off the pace. When was the last time we saw Gernot Fritsch start in 15th?
I mean, he had some troubles in recent seasons, but nothing that dire. As Michael de Turk, I think he's going to be our last one to set a time, and then the qualifying has finished. Michael down, looking to improve on a 106.9, crosses the line, a 106.5. That is much better, and that'll put him into 3rd. So our top 3 are only split by just a 10th of a second. It is going to be incredibly tight, and also a little bit steamy for Canada. It's 103 degrees Fahrenheit on the track surface, Peter. So they're gonna have their hands full of probably a little bit of opposite lock today.
Oh yeah, that high track temperature is really going to make the surface that little bit greasier. And like you say, it's not really what you would expect here in Ontario, in Canada, but obviously a nice bright summer's day. And yeah, that's going to make these cars move around underneath, which is not really a very nice feeling when that magic carpet of aero starts to wash away.
This is going to be a fascinating one. We already mentioned Freesia well out of what we expect to be a typical position for him, but Tolinen not improve on his second lap. Will start from 9th on the grid, and he tends to be quite quick. especially in a straight line, which with that long Mario Andretti straight, he could be one of the few that manages to get some overtakes out there since he trims out the car quite frequently. Hankel, for some reason, all the way down in 17th in this top split. So as we wait for the clock to tick down the last few seconds here for round 5 of the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series, it's all going to be on the line. We're getting close to that halfway mark in the season. And Andy T is going to be sitting on pole, taking that bonus point. We'll see who takes the bonus for the fastest lap once they get gridded up. All right. Qualifying is officially over now, which means the drivers are allowed to grid up. And that takes us to our starting order for today's event. Andy T has put it on the pole today with Tomasz Simon starting to his outside. Michael de Turk is going to be starting P3 with Severi Seppa in the 4th position. Nicola Kochi starts 5th, followed by Ove Trangrade in 6th spot, and Peter Koneski starts in 7th. Outside of that row, it's Martin Granberg with Jukka Tolinen starting 9th and Alessandro Parigi rounding out your top 10.
Starting on the 6th row of the grid here today for this Grand Prix at Motorsport, David Serrois with Roman Pawlowski joining him on the 6th row. Row 7 will be Dennis Channing and Rob Olenek with Gernot Fritzsche and Mick Claridge starting on row 8, an all-star row 8. Row 9 will be Andreas Henkel and Paul Williams. Barry West and Sean Campbell will start on row 10, and hopefully Sean Campbell's changed his helmet design.
The 21st will be Giosu Leokada, and Timothy Reeves, the only one that did not manage to get a time on the board as we wait for Fritzsche, Simone, Henkel, and Seppa to be the last ones to plot themselves onto the grid here today. It's going to be very difficult to try and pass, and apparently some of our drivers making sure to remind others that it is difficult, as they don't really want some risky moves tried out there, but you're going to have to try and make them if you want to move some spots up the order, as Fritzsche, the last one to put himself on the grid, which means they now start to rev their engines as the lights come up. Green flag is out, and Andy T is looking pretty good off the line. Simone slots in behind him. It's a great start for Seppa as he peels around the outside of de Turk. He's going to get into 3rd behind them as they all fly through the first corner. Now they plunge over the blind crest into Clayton.
This is really big gut stuff here into the opening section at Motorsport on a full tank of fuel and on cold tyres. That is where you're really leaving a bit of blind faith in what the car can do. And I tell you what, Andy T and Tomasz Simon have got a beautiful start to this race. Severi Seppa in 3rd, Michael de Turk 4th, and Nico Kochi in 5th as well. So just showing you the caliber of driving that we have in this particular series.
Wipe at the brow, everybody, not only through Clayton clean, but also Moss Corner. That car going wide was Tolinen, but he managed to rebuff Serrois. So he's going to be able to hold on to 9th position, as we saw a little bit of a peak there. And actually, Tolinen is going to lose a spot to Serrois potentially, as David managed to get to the inside of the 13. But our leaders already plunging through White's corner, with T still leading Simone, with Seppa in 3rd.
Just as quick as that, already through to the end of the opening lap. And Andy T, your leader, of course, now he's, well, if you think the Lotus 79 is quick, he's been dabbling in the new Dallara IR01. What have you seen,
We've had
Joe?
a big accident. Jukka Tolinen sends some cars flying. I'm trying to see who else got involved in that. It appears Andreas Henkel is one of them in the 12. So this starts with Tolinen, and Henkel, unfortunately, going to get into him. There's the 13. And yeah, was that the 4 of Mick Claridge? Oh, no.
This will be a scary one. Oh, it's like a skateboard ramp.
React, yeah. Gets some severe damage on the front, enough that he's going to have to take a tow. In fact, looks like Tolinen and Henkel have joined him in pit lane. As we come back to 3rd place, Severi Seppa challenging Simone. I thought this would be the Tomasz and T show, as they would fight for that lead, but instead they're getting an extra buddy in the mix as the Finn continues to keep him honest.
Indeed, and you never know what can happen when Andy T and Thomas Simone get into it. You've got to think that they'll get into a bit of back and forth and battling, and you have to really watch out for Moss Corner when you come around the very, very fast left-hander, fourth gear left-hander, or probably fifth gear actually in these cars, just absolutely sucked to the ground, round this left-hander, and then you've got to lean on the brakes as hard as you can, then turn left, and then right, and then right again. And when you're asking the car to do all those things at once, even a car as sophisticated as this one, it's very easy to lock up, and you can easily spin there too.
So those top three spread apart a little bit as they pick up speed, but behind them, Kochi was threatening to Turk as they headed towards Moss Hairpin, and instead he got a poor exit. So as you can see, we hop into the helmet of Ove Trangerade, and instead he's now seeing if he can overtake for a top five.
Yeah, Ove Trangerade, of course, one of our regular drivers in the Grand Prix Legends Series in the Lotus 49. A car that actually was put on pole here in 1967 by Jim Clark. But Ove Trangerade now on the Slicks and Wings car here in the Lotus 79 series. And this has been a superb start in this Honda Japan machine.
But these top six have definitely pulled themselves away from the rest of the field. It's about 2 seconds between Trangerade and Granberg, who runs behind him. There you can see there is that top group all in a train. And as they pick up speed down the Mario Andretti straight, who is trimmed out the most?
Well, we've seen this, of course, remember at Bathurst, Jukka Tolinen with the trimmed out setup, being able to keep his rivals behind and frustrating them with his straight line speed. But good start to the day for Barry West in 16th position right now, so progressing forward nicely. And we're looking back from Giosi Leocata, a new name for me, Joe.
I think we've seen him a bit before, but down deep into the S's. West is going to get himself into 15th. Another spot potentially no, as Reed is not able to get by Leocata. So this train all fighting for 15th position. Boy, bad exit for Olenek behind them in that yellow and white number 10.
Yeah, Rob Olenek running the Renault Elf colours as well. Now we've got a car stranded there.
Pawlowski.
Okay. Roman Pawlowski off. Just on the exit of turn one. It's a very similar mistake to what we saw from Tolinen.
And if we stay on this replay, Trangerade had a problem immediately after. Boy, this has been an absolute atrocious day for a Lotus 49 drivers. That's all three of the major players from there having issues within a couple laps of each other.
I think it's an interesting point, Joe, because obviously the track temperature is very high, but these cars, you really are leaning on such high aerodynamic grip, and that's where they make their lap time, these cars, whereas the Lotus 49 has got absolutely no aerodynamics whatsoever, certainly no downforce. So it's a completely different style of driving. I have to say, week in, week out, when these guys come over from the Lotus 49 into the Lotus 79, it's such a change. And I tell you what, that's such a pity for Ove Trangerade, because he was really running strong there.
Right on board with Tomasz Simon. Now they're starting to gap Seppa. It's about a second back to the fin. And our top two peeling away. The question is, does Shimon have anything for T? And we know that T is not going to take this one sitting down. He said before, he's here to race. So if Tomasz tries and battle him for this top spot, it is going to be on.
It is indeed. You can see the difference. They're almost identically matched on the straight. And Simone in the draft of T, but not really picking up any kind of speed advantage. That's interesting. So we'll see what it's like in the corners. Maybe Simone that little bit more, running a little bit more wing, a little bit more downforce, possibly. But the problem is, Joe, of course, that it's very difficult to get very close to the car in front because of the dirty air which comes out the back, and therefore really makes the aerodynamic grip in the corners a lot more difficult.
Absolutely. Even with those ground effects, we've seen these cars have problems trying to stay with one another. Now, Shaning and Sirois here have changed positions. Dennis now up into 8th, as behind him, Sirois still dealing with a fast driver in the form of Gernot Friesche, who we've hopped on board with, having begun this thing in 15th. He is up 5 spots, looking for one more.
Yeah, we know that Gernot Fritzsche is, he's not a P15 in qualifying man by any stretch of imagination. Multiple former champion here in the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix series. So we know he's got pace, just maybe not able to put it together over one lap in qualifying today. But in the draft here of David Serrois in the number 8 car, and Serrois almost looked like he lifted off there, Joe.
Didn't fight it very hard. Fritzsche took that one with ease, and that gets him 9th place. So one more up. In fact, David's now got pressure from Sean Campbell as well. Another one that has done fantastic, from 20 to 11th for Sean today.
Oh, he hasn't changed the helmet design. That just gives me oh god, oh that gives me nightmares.
Well, this might give David some nightmares as well, because right now Cage is coming, and he's going to look to the inside into Quebec. He gets the inside line, but can't accelerate off ahead of David Serrois. The Canadian lives to fight another day. Stop it, our director. No, stop it. It's not nice. Perfectly placed mirror.
Yes, yeah. Well, that's one way to scare your opponents out the way, that's for sure. Imagine looking in your mirror, you're going, oh, why is Nicolas Cage behind me without a helmet on?
He's here to steal the Declaration of Independence, of course. He's unfortunately got not enough speed to do it, at least this time. Can't snatch P10 away from Serrois down into the S's, but he's got plenty of laps to go. Just in front of them, I mentioned Shaney going up a spot, but instead it looks like he might go back down one again, because Gernot Fritzsche has arrived at his rear wing.
I love that shot there. Brilliant camera work from Dougie Beer going through turn 1, and the cars are just yawing sideways right the way through on the power, and the speeds are just incredible. You think there's no way this car can go around this corner, but just the faster you go, of course, the more downforce you get, and the car just glues itself to the ground. Absolutely incredible to see Fritzsche going round the outside of Shanning and moves up into 8th position. So brilliant drive from Gernot. It's almost a little bit of the Valentino Rossi syndrome. You're thinking what could have been with a good qualifying run.
I almost think Dennis lifted as well there. It seems like Gernot's reputation precedes him, and not many are fighting him hard. Just once they arrive, they get out of the way. Is behind them side by side with David Serrois, now letting through Sean Campbell. So looks like Nick Cage is going to get himself into the top 10.
I tell you what, I'm never getting on a flight with Sean Campbell, that's for sure. You never know what he'll do.
Do you think he has a Nick Cage mask that he wears?
I think yeah, maybe does. Yeah, maybe does. And certainly one way to. Oh no, of course he was the one being captured, not the one doing the capturing. It's been a long time since I've seen Con here.
As we ride on board with him, trying to see if he can get back to Dennis up ahead. And he's changed the phrase on the top of the helmet. So, as per my request, thank you very much, Sean. Not the bees, not the bees. I love it. One of my favorite Nick Cage lines to have come out. Let's check in on T and Shimon, because Tomas has got it down to 0.3 of a second again. Seppa holding on. It's still 8:10. So even though he's lost a little bit of time to those top two, he hasn't really dropped anything in the last few laps since we last glanced at them. But they have dropped Michael de Turk by about 2 seconds currently.
Yeah, it looks like they're just so evenly matched on lap time. About 0.4 of a second, the gap between T and Simone, and Seppa right there as well. And you never know what Severi Seppa might have up his sleeve here as well. You never know. He could just be trying to keep a little bit of tyre to the end of the race. Even Simone could be doing that. And whoa, now one of the Tyrrells is off. Now, is that Barry West or is it? It
is.
Oh, Barry. Oh, dear.
Rob Olenek tried to pull an over-under on him, and he went over into.
Oh, dear.
Those two.
That's not a very Rob Olenek. You don't see that very often.
Yeah, and two drivers easily going to gain a position. I think that's Reed and Williams who sneak by in the process. Big calamity, unfortunately, for those two coming off of White's corner. But I believe they're both able to keep running just with damaged cars. Back to Dennis, and Sean's looking for another one as we hop on board with the 15 there for a brief moment, and now looking out his gearbox as the number 9 riding incredibly close. See, he's saying arrow wake or not, he's able to handle this quite well because we've seen him right up behind a number of cars without really suffering too much problems.
Well, when is he going to hit the nitrous button on Eleanor and just shoot into the lead down the Mario Andretti straightaway? There's a button by the steering wheel that says, "Go, baby, go."
And interestingly, he's not running a Ferrari as well, as could have had a reference to The Rock there. One of the most famous car chase scenes in cinema history.
Nick Cage has been in a lot of films, hasn't he?
Oh, yes, he has. He drops off of Moss Hairpin, unfortunately, so not going to get the chance this time into the S's. But Campbell, my goodness, what a run this has been. He must have messed up his qualifying as well, since he's usually a front runner in this series, and qualifying in 20th just seems completely out of character for him.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Whoa, as you see Andy T putting in a very quick lap time, about 1/10.5 of a second quicker than Tamas Simon, 0.4 of a second quicker than Severi Seppa. So Seppa starting to drop off the scent of these leaders. Even Simone hanging on by a bit of a thread here now. T really starting to ask a lot of serious questions. And look at that, sliding around. Oh, that's poetic. Got the car in yaw all the way around turn 5. Beautiful stuff.
You know, I asked the question, well, not really a question so much, but pointed out that Simone has been incredibly quick. In fact, he probably could have had a victory at Brands Hatch if it weren't for poor performance there. So I'm a bit shocked that Andy T has suddenly shown himself to be the man to beat on pace today, although Simone catches him through the S's and chops that back down to 0.3 of a second. But Andy responding, basically stepping up his game and saying, all right, if it's going to have to be a case of beating you on raw pace, I can do that too.
And whoa, there you go. There's the mistake. So he's forced a mistake into him. Is Simone going to avoid the wall? Oh, just kisses it. Just kisses it and no more. Oh, wow. That's, well, that changes the complexion of the race. And Andy T, match point.
What a contrast to last season where Simone was practically unbeatable. And now we've seen multiple mistakes this season. He falls back to 4th, Seppa gets 2nd, Deturk gets promoted to 3rd.
Well, this is Andy T certainly putting together a very strong campaign for this championship. And now, tell me something, Joe. Obviously, we know Andy's been racing in the Dallara IR01. Is there a qualification stage for the upcoming World Championship? I
think he's going to have to get involved in that. Sean Campbell, who's had an off, is now attacking Konecki. Whoa! Attacking around the outside and making it look easy. Extra grip on that number 9 machine gets him into 11th. That was impressive stuff considering just a corner before into Moss, he had gone off and into the grass.
Randall Reigns, eat your heart out.
So, as he tries to make up for that mistake.
Oh, the massive moment there going through turn 2. Huge slide for Campbell. He's really on it today.
Pushing this car to its limit. Hopefully he didn't damage the underside of it, because if he's lacking those ground effects to their maximum effort, he could continue to have big slides like that. So he's going to try and work his way off of the Moss hairpin and leave Peter Konecki behind. So far, so good. And it doesn't look like Peter's going to try and be able to re-attack, although now he's starting to gain as they pick up speed. Oh, I'm going to eat my words. He's getting close. Does he duck to the inside? He does, but once again, Sean showing that he's got the superior speed through the corners.
He does, yeah, really in command of that car. Well, you can see with the cars, they've got so much grip, but when it breaks away, you've got to be ready for it, and you can see that Sean Campbell really able to manage the car and yaw. And I really wish we came to Motorsport more often. Again, in all forms of sim racing, because this track is just spectacular.
So what has all these developments done? Oh, no, before I can get to that, Paul Williams has had an accident. This is the number 19 coming out of the first corner. As we take a glance, it's the curbs. Oh, a big hit too.
Ooh. Well, he'll want some candy to get his sugar levels back up after that one. That's going to shock him.
Wow, so that might be our latest retirement. We've already lost Hankel, Tolanen, Claridge, Trangrade, Pavlowski, so now Paul Williams. We're down to 16 drivers out of 22. Attrition is rearing its ugly head. And we've come to the closest battle on the track now on your screen. Dennis Shaney and David Serrois going at it yet again.
Well, it's hard to say if it's surprised or not, for obviously the driving standards here in the Lotus 79 Grand Prix Series are some of the very best on iRacing. The skill required to do these kind of lap times in this car is exceptional, but I guess it's maybe the Motorsport factor, Joe, because you really are having to, you've got to really readjust your brain completely, because you think there's no way that this car can go around this corner that fast, but in order to be that quick in a high downforce car, you've got to almost have that blind faith.
Ooh, Tomas may be able to get back on the podium here as he's already attacking De Turk. Michael's going to hold the inside, and Tomas decides he's just going to get back in the line. So not willing to risk the outside move like we saw from Campbell quite yet. But we're only, halfway through this race, just about 2 more laps. And I think we have hit that marker. Right on board, you can see how violent this car is coming through the bumps on this Canadian pavement that experiences those harsh winters. Can't get up next to De Turk, at least through this phase of the lap. Maybe he'll get another run on the Andretti straight later.
Yeah, I think you've got to have that car just that little bit more trimmed out if you want to get that run up the Andretti straight. We've seen Sean Campbell able to do that, but Michael De Turk at the moment, running in a podium position, does have Thomas Simone all over the back of him. But we can, apparently, you can see on these cars, you can see little just bends in the front wing. But apparently, I understand, Joe, that there isn't too much to worry about there. It's more just wear and tear over the races. We see Simone hooking it all the way around the outside. You can do that, and then gets the inside here. Yes, but then De Turk goes, but remember whites? And I go, oh yeah, forgot about that. Oh, you're going through those S's, having so much fun, and then you're going, oh, whites, need to get it slowed down. You often see a lot of mistakes there at that corner. Side by side through all 3 of them, and still he was able to deny Simone. That takes some incredible skill from Michael De Turk, who really wants this podium position. He's going to have to defend for quite a while, though, based on the pace that we're seeing from Tomas, be able to run him down. And we're going to see it all over again, I have a feeling, as he's sticking with it. Coming down into the Moss hairpin, looking for that good exit to get himself as far alongside as possible. This is very good. He is right underneath him as they pick up speed, already 130 miles an hour, and they're barely coming up the hill. He'll be able to duck out from that draft and get alongside. He's got a nose ahead, but the car starts to stall out. They're almost interlocking wheels as they now plunge into the corner. This time, though, De Turk is fully back into 3rd place before they get back into the left-hander. Great defensive driving there from Michael De Turk, not compromising. Whoa, that might compromise his cleanliness of his overalls. My goodness me, that was a big moment there for Michael De Turk, but brilliant defensive driving, keeping the defending champion, the undisputed champion of Lotus 79 in recent times, Thomas Simone, keeping him behind. Wow, and De Turk almost looked like he didn't bat an eye. He didn't lose any time to Simone with that mistake coming out of whites. This is our pretty much closest battle in the field right now. I'm keeping half an eye on Freisha to see if he catches up to Granberg, who's his next target. Both of them sliding the tires coming off of that second apex through Moss, but it's still nice and tidy for Simone now that he's got the slipstream. And as he
once again starts to pull alongside. Last time they nearly made contact, and once again getting very, very close to one another. This is going to come to tears if they don't play it safe at some point. He manages to hold alongside, but once again, the last right-hander coming through whites, accelerates off the corner. Did he figure it out? It looks like Simone's got the edge, and they're almost going to be wheel-to-wheel coming into the first quarter. No! He chops off Michael de Turk and finally takes third away.
Brilliant stuff there from Thomas Simone. My goodness me, to make that move stick. Michael de Turk was making that car so wide, and as we said, the overtaking opportunities aren't necessarily in abundance here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, but Simone goes through back up to second. But meanwhile, after recovering from that little mistake, Andy T has just been laying down red hot lap times out front.
He really has. I mentioned it briefly that there is a couple bonus points on hand for fastest lap. Well, that is in the hand of Andy T. So he is looking at taking maximum points with a haul of 60 here today if he can keep that 107.237 as the fastest marker on the board. Closest driver is actually Tomas Simone, but he's about a tenth off of that quickest time.
So can de Turk respond? It would be a big ask to be able to put a move on Thomas Simone here, and you can just see just how much corner speed Thomas Simone carries. And now that he's got, I get the feeling, Joe, that Thomas Simone has got a setup that is as fast as anyone in open air, but not so good on when following.
Are we going to go too wide into Clayton? Oh, he thought about it. Thankfully, coming down to the apex, Serrois says, no, I don't think you want to. Quite yet, at least, and he'll hold on to 10th. So trying to once again work his way back into the top 10, and he makes another mistake as Sean Campbell finds himself sideways on the road, but thankfully nobody's coming, and he can get moving once again.
Oh dear. Well, just the tiniest mistake, just one touch on the grass and whoop, and you can see him hang on to the brakes there, trying to make sure that he stays out the barrier. But actually Sean Campbell did really well there not to end up in the wall, because here at Motorsport they are so close to the side of the track, hence why we don't see F1 or IndyCar coming here to this track nowadays.
There's two faces to Nick Cage today, and he's unfortunately very quick but also very mistake prone, unfortunately.
And they're both really creepy.
Yeah. As Andy T sets another fastest lap. My goodness, he's now 0.3 ahead of Tomas Simone's quickest lap at a 107 flat. This has just been a stunning drive from the number 3, and he's currently got 5.5 seconds ahead of Seppa. He is just dominating this race at this point.
He really is. Look at those lap times: 107.2, 107.2, 107.3, 107.2, 107.0. Wow, really impressive from Andy T. And of course, this is the real sweet spot of the race as well. The fuel load's coming down quick. The tyres are still in pretty good condition. Often we see drivers setting the fastest lap of the race on the very last lap. But with this high track temperature, Joe, I'd be surprised if that happens.
Yeah, and the temperature has actually mercifully stayed pretty steady. It hasn't gone up. It's only 103 Fahrenheit. The same as it was at the drop of the green. Not much wind, thankfully, either, to whip these cars around. So can pretty much count on it staying as is. Now, we wondered about where Gernot Friesche could get with his pace, and right now he's into 7th. He's been creeping forward on Martin Grandberg, and it's down to about 1.1 seconds. At some point soon, he should start to feel the effects of the slipstream up the Andretti straight.
Yep, they should be in. Whoa! Whoa, my word, that's opposite lock, for goodness sake, Gernot. That is incredible. Well, normally we see a lot of crashes here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park at Moss Corner, but these guys have just got such exceptional car control that any near accidents they're catching, I'd love to see a replay of that, because Gernot Friesche must have had his arms crossed over 3 times over, because that was just amazing.
And we also just had a spin from David Serrois, so Campbell got the spot anyways in the end. This also happened in Moss Corner for the number 8.
Let's take a look at the replay. This was similar to Gernot. He was already out in the dirt there. So we take another glance at the Canadian at his home track, discovering just how tough it is here.
Yeah, just carries a little bit too much speed in, locks up, has to let off the brake and run wide, and actually minimises the damage there. Could have been worse, but keeps the car pointing relatively in the same direction. And yeah, but Sean Campbell makes his way through, who of course has had his own little half spin.
Well, I guess it all kind of evened out in the end, and Campbell now running away at about 1.2 seconds up the road from the Renault. Back to that fight for 6. Freesia cuts it down to 0.8 of a second. A 107.470 is his quickest of the race. Granberg's fastest was a lap prior to 107.505, but this one, I get the feeling, is going to be much faster for Freesia yet again. And yes, a 107.3 now for the number 1 machine. So he has it down to 0.8 of a second. Granberg only able to manage a 107.6.
Well, Freesia really on the charge from 15th on the grid up to 7th, and Gernot Freesia always in the fight for the championship come the end of the season, but can't really get away with too many finishes in these sorts of positions. You really need to be in the top 5 as a minimum every round to compete for that title, but you know that he'll if there's anyone who can pull it out the bag, it's Gernot Freesia, but he's really starting to hunt down Martin Granberg now.
That's a good point. Championship-wise, Shimon, despite falling down to 3rd, should still be able to catch up to Freesia. I don't think he'll be able to overtake him on points, though. I'll have to double-check on that. But it'll tighten things up as they both lose ground to Andy T, who will continue to extend his gap. Andy T with another fastest lap once again, very close to breaking into the 106s as well.
Yeah, I think it's maybe a matter of when rather than ever going to see a 106 from Andy T, and what a lap time that would be to see that kind of level of pace. It's been a dominant performance that we really don't particularly see very often.
So we hop on board with Andy T. Peter, talk us through a lap here, what it takes to be quick in these cars, especially with Andy T's skills.
Well, I can talk you through the lap. I actually have no idea how he's doing this, but hence why I'm behind the microphone. But yes, I shall try. Going around here in the S's, you can see, look at them, just the minimal amount of steering input, and then as soon as the car maybe just starting to break away, Andy T is right there to hang on to it. Around whites they go, little bit of a wiggle, and then over the start-finish line. This is a blind right-hander, I would imagine completely flat out in these cars. You can see the car just wanting to slightly break away, then up to turn 2, one of the greatest corners in the whole of North America. Whoa, you could just goes really light over the crest of the hill there, out onto the curb, up now towards turn 4, keeping it nice and tight to the curb, hard on the power again, and then this is where it gets really scary. You're going so quick through here. Jackie Stewart used to say that this is one of the most demanding corners anywhere in the world, into Moss Corner, that was meant to actually be a hairpin initially, but Sterling Moss suggested that it would make a better outlay, a better layout, I should say, as a double right-hander, be more of a challenge for the driver, and well, he was absolutely right. Then, before you know it, we're onto the Mario Andretti straightaway, and up to where we started.
So is Granberg and Freesia. They just came onto that straightaway, and this is the closest that Freesia has been. He's pulling the slipstream on the number 6. Does he have enough straight line speed to get it done as he pops out to the left-hand side of that number 6 machine? Can he send it in deep into turn 8? Yes, he can. That is 6th position for Gernot Freesia. He's got 10 more laps to get up to Nicola Kochi and see if he can crack the top 5, but he's got to make up 1.8 seconds to do so. So that's going to be a tough ask with how long it took to try and catch Granberg.
Yeah, that will be a tough ask indeed. So 10 laps to go, coming into the final stages of this Grand Prix here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Can Andy T get that 106? Last time around, Severi Seppa set his best time in the race, a 107.215. So Andy T doesn't necessarily have this fastest lap in the bag.
And he's been consistently quicker than Simone these last few laps, if I'm seeing correctly. Seppa very consistently in the 107.2s, whereas Simone's been a little bit all over the place. 107.4s, 107.3s. He has hit 107.2s. There's the lap comparison. And indeed, yeah, that plus sign on the last 4 laps to me says that Tomasz may be struggling at the end of this race.
Could be, yeah. Either that or Simone maybe feels just like there's not enough time to catch up, and maybe just cruising now, possibly. Relatively speaking, of course. This is a different definition of cruising, but Thomas Simone, he's certainly met his match today. We've seen him be so dominant over the last couple of months, pretty much through the whole 2021. But Andy T has been the star of the show today.
We're watching from on board there for a moment with Simone. Nothing really seems too out of sorts. So yeah, I think you might be right that Seppa just has got himself in the zone here today. This man, though, Andy T, getting ready to hit 8 laps to go now as he crosses the line. Has been looking almost impeccable out there. And there is our first 106 of the day, a 106.8 even. He didn't just crack it, he smashed it.
That is outrageous speed. Unbelievable. I mean, to be 0.4 of a second quicker than Severi Seppa and nearly half a second quicker than the best of Thomas Simone. That is just one of those days when you see a driver where everything comes together. They're obviously at the peak of their powers. They've got the car dialed in perfectly, and they're on a circuit which they love. And I have to say, it's okay, we're not seeing overtaking for the lead here, Joe, but it is something to marvel at when you see this level of prowess.
I think we'll finally get some overtaking, but it won't be for position because Andy T is quickly approaching some of our tail-end cars. Shockingly, we haven't had anybody go a lap down and continue running. Everybody who has gone down from the lead lap has wrecked out, essentially. Leo Cotta is going to be the first that'll be approached. He's been trying to catch up to Barry West, who we know is suffering from a bit of damage with his incident we saw with Rob Olenek. And in probably just a couple laps' time here, I suspect they're going to be getting those blue flags and having to hop out of the way of Andy T.
We look at Timothy Reed here on screen in the number 18 machine. Started in 22nd and up to 12th. So he's, his team Shadow, he's been stalking his way up through the field. Great charge.
I'm sure Bill Zahn would want us to point out he did not qualify. He was the only car that failed to put a time in. And which is interesting because I'm seeing one on the board in qualifying for him, but not one showing up in the all-over time in his scoring. But he's made good on it, despite it not seeming to count for whatever reason, and eventually climbed up to at least 12th today. Oh, and Freisha, well, wow, he made quick work of Nicola Kochi. It's down to 0.3 of a second now as they plunge into the S's. And Nicola's going to have to withstand a lot of pressure for the final 5 laps of this race.
Yeah, Nico Kochi, of course, in his motion rig at home and with VR headset, so it's absolutely as close as you can get to the real thing. He's got it in his man cave at home. He's even got a collection of model Lotus 79s as well. So Nico Kochi is certainly fully committed to the cause.
And Italy's been a bit spoiled recently with racing. They had their Prix with Formula E visiting there, and now the Emilio Romagna, no spoilers, I haven't seen it yet, as they've had plenty of top-tier racing come their way. And now, unfortunately, he's having a top-tier racer show up in his mirrors as the number 7 is going to have Gernot Freisha get bigger and bigger in that reflector. He's got the slipstream coming up to turn 8, but he can't get the overlap.
A working theory here, Joe. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think that Gernot Fritzsche's maybe got a race car that's been set up beautifully for the race, but maybe wasn't able to find a setup for qualifying that could really get that one hot lap? It seems that he's got just as much pace as really anyone, with maybe the exception of Andretti, of course. But it just seems that Gernot's just maybe not able to dial that qualifying setup in, perhaps.
I think you might have something there, as we're going to take a look at Rabo's replay, because he's spun off track once again in Quebec. This time, though, it didn't seem to go off like we saw with Campbell, because he spun mid-corner. So he's able to get going, but he falls back to 16th. Now, in the past, to your question, I feel like we have seen Gernot Fritzsche go a little bit quicker towards the end of the races. So that may be a bit of what we're seeing right here. Is once again, he's very strong and to the inside of turn 8, and Kochi has no response. In fact, he doesn't fight that one at all. Gernot gets into the top 5 with a mere 4 laps to go.
It almost seems to me that Gernot's race car is very, very trimmed out, actually, for a circuit like this, and that's allowing him to make these passes up into turn 8 at the end of the Mario Andretti straightaway. But it's certainly an interesting one. Some drivers set up their car so that it comes alive later on in the race. We see that, actually, funnily enough, in the two-wheeled world in MotoGP. You see some riders who are absolutely nowhere for the first 5 or 10 laps, and then all of a sudden they start to come alive. And a lot of it can be due to the way that they work the tyre, of course, and the higher pressures and temperatures and things like that.
Can report that Andy T has been steadily going by lap traffic, which hasn't given him any problems at all at this point. In fact, he's kept the gap to Seppa at about 9 seconds currently. Now catching up to 13th place, Peter Konecki, and another fastest lap at a 106.6 now.
Wow. That's I'm afraid. I wish I could come up with something more intelligent to say than that, but wow. Andy T, that is doff my cap. That is amazing pace. 106.6. He's the only driver to break the 106 barrier.
Yeah, Seppa's come closest. No, I take that back. Shimon, 107.042, and he's been beat by Fritzsche recently, a 107.038. So very tight behind him for best of the rest on fastest lap. But unfortunately, there's no bonus points for second and fastest lap. You got to be the quickest or else.
Well, it seems to be a little bit out of reach now for Andy T's rivals, both for the race win, but also that fastest lap bonus point. I really like that, having that bonus point for fastest lap. Gives us something to keep an eye on as well throughout the race.
This is the fight between Parisi and Shaning here for 8th position. Ooh, and Dennis, he's got a very good run. I think he's going to be a lot closer in just a moment as we see those rear wings and wheels get bigger in our screen. He pops to the left side. He'll have the overlap coming into the S's, but the job's not done, and Parisi says, "You shall not yet, sir."
Great defensive driving from Parisi there, saying if you're going to go past me, you're going to have to go the long way around, Dennis. And Dennis just kind of ran out of corner speed there and had to duck back in again, but really putting a lot of pressure here on Shannon, and he's very close now. And if he can stay close in this opening part of the circuit and get a good run out of Moss Corner, I think he will have the overspeed advantage coming up the Mario Andretti straightaway. We'll keep an eye on it, but 2 to go here at Motorsport. And well, it's certainly, if you look at the rate of attrition, Joe, it really has put these drivers to the test.
And we're actually getting the white flag now as T crosses the line, but this is about to get interesting. I didn't think Fritzsche would be this high in the first place, let alone fighting for 4th, because that's to Turk right in front of him, less than a second gap to his rival now.
Well, not to be outdone, Severi Seppa has broken the 106 barrier, a 106.924, still about 0.3 off Andy T's best, but it just shows you amazing. We've got about 5 or 6 drivers who are all on very similar outright pace, 107 flat kind of area. But unfortunately, it's just been one of those days where there's been a driver on a whole new plateau entirely. But Oh, big understeer there for Gernot Fritzsche, and has to back out of it.
I was going to say, he's really flirting with that outside, and that cost him some time, unfortunately. So that breaks us away from that battle, because Andy T is coming around the S's. It was 2 wins last week for Simone, but he's going to match him. Andy T out of White's corner takes victory number 2 this season here in Canada.
What a drive. What an absolutely steamrolling performance there from Andy T. But big props to Severi Seppa, has driven flawlessly as well, putting in some really, really hot lap times as well. And Thomas Simone taking home the last spot on the podium.
The Turk with 4th, about a second ahead of Friesche in the end. And it looks like that battle between Parisi and Shaney going to come down to the wire, but I think Alessandro's got the edge. As, yeah, he comes off the final turn, and the number 16 car will finish in 8th. Campbell, who is up and down the order, does get a top 10, but I have to think there could have been a lot more in store for that number 9 if he hadn't have had so many errors. Last of them start to stream across the finish, so that's going to take us to a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. We'll come back with the official results as well as driver interviews, so stick around. Welcome back to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. We just watched round 5 of the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series, and Andy T has responded. He took the victory emphatically today, with Severi Seppa trying to chase him, but couldn't keep up the incredible pace that we saw from the number 3. Tomas Simone made a mistake. He was actually the closest on pace to T for much of the race, but fell back to 4th, eventually got back on the podium, and is going to lose some more points to our championship leader. Michael de Turk finished in 4th, just barely ahead of Gernot Friesche, who had a poor qualifying mysteriously. going from 15th to 5th, as Nicola Cocci was behind him in P6. Martin Granberg took 7th today, with Alessandro Parigi barely across the line ahead of Shaney, 8th and 9th for those two respectively, and the top 10 rounded out by the up and down race of Sean Campbell.
Finishing in 11th today here at his home race, David Serrois here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, just outside of the top 10. Timothy Reed was 12th, followed by Peter Konecki, Barry West and Giossi Leocotta, rounding out your top 15. Rob Olnick was classified in 16th, and Paul Williams, Roman Pawlowski, Uwe Trengerade and Jukka Tolonen not finishing the race.
Same with the DNF for the last two here today, but it was victory for Andy T, who has taken his second win of the season. Andy, you and Severi Seppa were the only two able to crack into the 106s here in this race. It looked like you were just blistering out there. How did it feel?
Pretty zen, to be honest with you. It's just looking at apexes and exits the whole race, and what more can you do?
I mean, we hear drivers sometimes talk about just getting in the zone like that. Was that one of those races where you just kind of in your own place that whole time, even with the pressure that you had from Simone for part of the race?
Oh, was there pressure? I didn't notice. Man, I so hard this week, you wouldn't believe. So to get the reward and drive like that, it just feels incredible. And I know others aren't putting the effort in I am necessarily, but I don't think that discredits what I just did. I'm over the moon with that.
It sounds like you really earned it then. And, that's actually going to extend your championship lead over Simone. I had kind of hinted in my intro that Tomas would be the one with the best pace this season, like we saw last season when he dominated. But you're starting to make me question that. In fact, I think it's safe to say that you and he can be counted as equals, if not you are showing the measure of him.
I wouldn't say that. The dude is an alien driver. You may have seen him in other broadcast races this week, which may have not gone his way, but his pace is just electric in absolutely anything he drives. So let's not wave the Andy T is great flag quite so soon. Tamas is a fantastic driver, and it's a shame that he had an incident. I mean, he's still got P3, so yeah, you know he's a good guy.
Oh, it's definitely given us the fight that we've been looking for. Congratulations on another win, and can't wait to see you out in California.
Yeah, I love that track. Like, just a fantastic track. Believe it or not, when I first got into this car, I drove 1,400 laps there to learn. So yeah, practice, baby.
All right, Andy T. Going to be prepared as well at Laguna Seca after taking the win here today in Canada, as we've got Peter talking to our fourth place finisher, Michael DeTurk.
Michael, welcome to the GSRC commentary box. That was quite a drive from you today. How did you find it?
Thanks. Good afternoon, or good evening, as the case may be for you guys. It's always intense around Motorsport. You know, it's especially with a group like this. One little mistake and you're done. You know, with Gernot creeping up behind me there for the last few laps, I won't say I wasn't nervous, and definitely had a few big slides through turn one, but thankfully finished top 5. I think maybe I shouldn't have read James Hunt's biography a few weeks ago, because I'm either top 5 or I'm crashed, one or the other.
Well, you've certainly got the right sponsor to live out all your James Hunt fantasies. I would imagine he was I bet he was partial to a vodka martini or 6 from time to time.
Before the race, during the race, who knows? You know.
And the breakfast of champions as well.
Certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tell us a bit more about Motorsport, because this is a track that actually we don't see that often being used in sim racing calendars. But you look at a combination, this ground effect Formula One car. I mean, you're hanging on by your fingernails by the looks of it.
It's such a classic, and yeah, you're sliding everywhere. You know, the biggest issue is getting down to Moss. You get in there, you feel like you have some confidence coming through turn 3. Turn 4 is flat, which is just insanity in most cars. And then you try to get the car slowed down for Moss, and you never take it the same way twice. It's always a drift show. You're bouncing on the throttle, bouncing on the brake, trying not to run it out wide, trying not to hit that inside curb. You know, it's just an insane challenge, and it should get used more. It's such a good track.
It is. We should start a campaign. The Turk Mackay Martini Racing Motorsport James Hunt Grand Prix at Motorsport. Michael, before we let you go to go and enjoy a great finish, who would you like to shout out to here on GSRC?
I think my mom and dad were watching today, so I hope they enjoyed.
Fantastic stuff. Michael, thanks for coming to join us, and well done on your 4th place finish today.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
That was Michael DeTurk, 4th, and a little bit farther down the order, unfortunately, Barry West, 14th today. Barry, it didn't seem like the best one for you out there. A bad start off the line, and then had to avoid some wrecks as well as get involved in one, it seemed.
Yeah, Joe seemed his damage avoidance. I knew it was going to be a long race, and I didn't mind losing a few places at the beginning because I had an idea chaos was going to kick off, but it's a bit annoying really because I've had a really good pace here all week, and I was aiming for top 12 today, and I think I had the pace for it, although Tim had a bit more on me at the end of the race, but it was some good racing early on with GSO and Rob Oldnack, and I don't know if you caught it on camera, but he just caught me into the last turn when I was defending. We defended the 3 corners before, and of course he went a bit wide in the one before the end, and just got on the power too early and just tapped me down, and that was a scary thing to see everybody coming at you. But fortunately the car seemed to survive, and it didn't seem to make too much difference to the pace, and then towards the end I was catching Peter, praying for another lap, but I had to let Andy through. But I'm just happy that I finished 14th and 19th. I think could have been 2 more higher, but we'll take the points. Yeah, it's a good race.
Yeah, it seemed like attrition definitely helped in that sense. But next week, we're heading off to Laguna Seca, which shares some similarities with it being a track where it's hard to pass, it's technical, and it's fast. So do you think this helped prepare you for the next round a little bit?
This has been my favorite track. I had my first win here, and I just love this track. And these old school tracks seem to be really good for this car. But Laguna Seca seemed to do well there. But of course, I've had quite a suffer on iRacing lately, so I haven't been in the broadcast races. But been having some good races in the second split. But you can see I was the last one, I think, IR-wise to get in today. So at least it's building up again. So hopefully we can get back over 3,000 again and start competing in the higher echelons of the Lotus 79.
Well, commiserations that this one didn't go better this week, but hopefully we'll get to talk to you in better circumstances later. And have a good week, I suppose, sir.
Yeah, well, thanks, Joe. It's my birthday today as well, so I thought they could have let me pass, but they didn't.
Well, happy birthday. I'm glad we got to talk to you then. Enjoy that, and don't burn the house down with too many candles.
It's going to be a lot of candles, I tell you. Cheers.
That was Barry West celebrating birthday today. So glad he got to come in and have a little chat as we get ready to close up now. A big thank you, of course, to the Lotus 79 community for bringing us back for another season of coverage here as we get to see great races like this, but also thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast. Additional thanks to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music, and thanks to the team today, Peter, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. Also, check out our merchandise store at simracingmerch.com/GSRC. We keep a link in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. Next race is going to be Laguna Seca. That'll be Sunday, April 25th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. And up next, later this afternoon, it's going to be the PRL NASCAR Cup Cars going to Richmond at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.